and welcome to Spotlight. I am Comfort Mussa, your host on the show. Spotlight is a co-production of NAJA TV and Sisterspeak237. On Spotlight today, we will be talking about eliminating the deaths and complications from unsafe abortions in Cameroon, but we will be having a legal perspective into these issues. Joining me on Spotlight today, we have Barrister Chefu, a human rights advocate here in Cameroon. You're welcome, Barrister.
Thank you, Camille.
And we also have Dr. Filbert Eko Eko. He is an obstetrician, a gynecologist, and a focal point for ACAC. Welcome, Dr. Eko.
Thank you, and welcoming me again to this platform.
Real quick, I want you to tell us what ACAC is, because I said you're a focal person for ACAC. I know it's a mouthful, but what is that?
ACAC is a project that is sponsored by the International Federation for Gynaecology and Obstetrics, and that is piloted in Cameroon by the Society of Gynaecologists and Obstetricians of Cameroon. ACAC stands for Advocacy for Comprehensive Abortion Care.
Advocacy for Comprehensive Abortion Care in Cameroon. Is abortion legal in Cameroon, Barrister?
That's a funny one.
Yeah.
Abortion is legal, not legal. So I think we're going to go into the details of that subsequently.
Let's just get that out of the way. Is it legal in Cameroon? What does the law in Cameroon say about abortions?
Okay, I'm going to quote what the law says about abortion, and then we are going to talk a bit about abortion. From section 337 of the Penal Code, it brings out who is supposed to be punished for committing the act of abortion. And it says any woman procuring or consenting to her own abortion shall be punished with imprisonment from 15 days to 1 year, and with a fine of 5,000 to 200,000 francs. Okay. It goes further to say that whoever procures such abortion of a woman, notwithstanding her consent, will be punished between 1 to 5 years or from 100,000 upward. Now, that is about the punishment. Let's go to who the law accepts from this kind of punishment. Section 339 of the Penal Code. It talks about a saving mother. It says neither of these two foregoing sections apply to acts performed by certified persons or proved necessary for a saving mother from grave danger of her health, which is like if she has a health complication and the only way out is abortion, then abortion is permitted. That is where abortion is legalized. And it talks again of if pregnancy resulting from rape. And obviously, when we talk about rape, we go side by side with incest and all of these acts that are committed against the girl child. Abortion by a qualified medical practitioner after a certificate by the prosecution of a good case shall constitute no offense. So the two major people here are mothers who are in grave danger of their health and someone who has been raped.
Okay.
Yeah.
I needed us to get that legal context before we dive into the discussions today, because in Dr. Eko's introduction, he mentioned he's a focal point for a project that advocates for comprehensive abortion care. And I imagine our viewers will be asking themselves, but is it legal in Cameroon? And I'm glad you've given us a legal context for what the law in Cameroon says about abortions. And today on the program, we are looking at eliminating the high complications resulting from unsafe abortions. And when we talk about high complications resulting from unsafe abortions, I'm coming back to you, Dr. Eko. Medically, what is an unsafe abortion, and what are some of the complications that, as a gynecologist and as members of SOGOC, that you see, from unsafe abortions?
Thank you, Komi, for that question, which is very pertinent. Before coming to that, I just want to make one clarification in the sense of the terminologies that we use. When we talk of comprehensive abortion, advocacy for comprehensive abortion care, comprehensive abortion care constitutes two components. The first component is safe abortion, and the second component is post-abortion care. So those are the two components that fit into comprehensive abortion care. In case that a woman might have had any sort of abortion, and then she comes to the hospital in that context, it's what we call post-abortion care.
Okay.
We must do something, we must take care of the complications or anything that she's having. And again, if a woman is eligible with respect to the law that the barrister has just quoted, then we need to provide safe abortion. Instead of her going to back street and having unsafe abortion, we need to provide her with safe abortion. So these are the two components of comprehensive abortion care. Coming to the question you've just asked concerning the complications, I think that is the question, the questions that you asked. The complications are so many. You have immediate complications, you have short-term complications, and you have long-term complications. Immediate complications might be instant death. Immediate complications. Immediate complications might be what we call, there's what we call a vagal shock. Vagal shock is a type of shock that is provoked and stimulated by the process of committing a surgical abortion using instruments and so on. It's a vagal shock, and it can affect you, and immediately you have an arrest of all your vital organs, and it stops and you die immediately.
And this is happening a lot in Cameroon?
Of course, it is happening. It is happening, and that is why it is as one of the major complications that occur. Even at times, if it is done in the hospital, that's why people need to be trained to do what we call pain management, because the first cause of this vagal shock is the pain that the woman feels. So that pain has to be managed properly in such a way that the woman shouldn't develop such complications. Another immediate complication is severe bleeding. You can bleed severely and you go to what we call hemorrhagic shock, and you die of that if you are not taken care of immediately. Short-term complications are infections. You can develop infection 1 day after, 2 days after, 3 days after. You can develop severe complications that can affect your general system, can cause other problems like renal failure, can cause other problems like infertility. Those are late problems. It can cause other problems like endocarditis infections that affects the heart. All this occur. Some women even come to the hospital at the state of brain abscess because the infection has gone wide into their system and it has affected their brain. And then again, you have long-term complications. Long-term complications, the major long-term complication is infertility. Infertility that can have many, the immediate cause is the abortion. But now the abortion can cause what I said in one other program, a complete collapse of the uterus, what we call uterine synechia. We call it a Sherman syndrome in the general language. But it's a complete closure of the uterine cavity. That is one of the complications that can lead to infertility. Another complication that can lead to infertility is what we call adenomyosis. Adenomyosis is part of the endometrium infiltrating into the muscular wall of the womb. And that one can give you another complication that can lead to infertility. Another complication of infertility is infection. Infection can cause to blockage of your tubes, and blockage of your tubes can lead to infertility. So many women develop infertility with these different ways that it can occur, but all are coming from the same cause, which is unsafe abortion. And as I said, death is the final stage. Women are dying. Some are dying because of infection. Some are dying because of vagal shock. Some are dying because of hemorrhagic shock. And I just talked about infertility. I forgot to say that your womb can be infected in such a way that it can be conserved. That at the time you come, we just need to save your life, we just need to take out the womb, and then you be a woman without a womb. And I don't know how a woman can be human without womb.
And we're having these conversations in this month of March, where all over the world the focus is on the women, because March is Women's Month. And when you give these complications, you've given a long list. I wonder what percentage of Cameroonian women, you know, suffer these complications. Can you give us some figures? How many women are affected by these complications resulting from unsafe abortions?
Unsafe abortion or complications and death linked to unsafe abortion is a public health problem.
In Cameroon?
In Cameroon. And as I said, and I said some other time, I will continue to say, when we talk of a public health problem, any problem that is considered public health is above 10%. Deaths linked to unsafe abortion in Cameroon, with respect to the different settings that studies have been carried out, is between 13 to 30% in the different settings. But when we harmonized all these studies, we are at a range of 15 to 20% during a harmonization. That is death. And statistics have shown that one death is rational to 30 complications. So if you consider that you have 30 deaths, you need to multiply it by 30, 13 by 30 to give you the number of complications that are linked to those deaths. So you see what happens to Cameroonian women. That is why they think that a problem is solved. The immediate problem is solved. That is stopping the pregnancy from progressing. But after you stop the pregnancy from progressing, have you assessed the complications that you've caused? If you did not die, have you assessed the complications? The complications are enormous, real enormous. So women should look at that and not just look at the immediate what they want, but what is the aftermath of the procedure that they carry out.
Yeah, and today we're having a legal perspective to this big problem that we've raised. Our target is to look at some of the policymakers and what they can do to secure the lives and the health of Cameroonian women. If these complications abound and the number of deaths are as many as you say it, why do women in Cameroon continue to seek unsafe abortion methods?
That's a question for concern. There are many angles that push women to seek this unsafe abortion. The first angle is ignorance. They are ignorant of the legal aspect first, as concerns the legitimacy of an abortion. Secondly, they are ignorant of the complications that can result from where they go to. Thirdly, they are ignorant that these services are provided in formal hospital institutions. That is the first aspect of it. They are ignorant of that aspect. The second aspect, again, is the legal bottlenecks. That now concerns us, the providers. When we look at the legal bottlenecks that interweaves with the procedure, we realize that we need to work hard to try to see how the legislationists can shorten this procedure, can make the procedure shorter in such a way that these women can benefit from that procedure when they are legally eligible.
I would like to understand the legal procedure and the bottlenecks that exist, especially at the level of the hospital. So let's take an example that a girl has been raped, a woman has been raped, and there is a pregnancy as a result of this rape. She's traumatized and doesn't want to keep it, and she comes to your hospital and says, I just discovered I was raped, I'm pregnant, I don't want to keep it because I'm traumatized. And the law, like Barrister said, permits an abortion within that context. What stops you from helping this woman when she appears before you at the hospital? or any other doctor? Yeah.
Technically, when we look at the medical part of it, it looks simple. That's why I say we have to work a lot with the legislation, with the legal, because the legal persons have made the thing so cumbersome. Let me go to the floor level. Rape, the terminology of rape. The legal person has shunned that word from being medical to legal. In such
by
a way
legal
that,
persons, you mean lawyers?
Yes.
Okay.
Mean lawyers, magistrates.
Okay.
Yes. It is more of a legal terminology than a medical terminology, in such a way that they have made it in such a way that a medical person cannot diagnose rape. Rape cannot be diagnosed medically. Rape can only be diagnosed legally.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is where the problem is. They believe, because we define rape as unconsented penetration. When you start looking at those terminologies, it becomes so difficult for us to know whether, in certain circumstances anyway, there are certain circumstances that are very evident.
Yeah.
But now, the way they have put it, it becomes a bottleneck to us, that even those that are very evident, we cannot just attest that this has been rape. We have to just make our medical findings and send to
So if a rape victim comes to the hospital, she has a pregnancy as a result of this rape, and she doesn't want to keep it because of the trauma and all of that, what happens at the hospital, so that we can understand the procedure and these bottlenecks that you're talking about?
That is, it is very important to ask the question clearly like that, so that we can look at it exactly what happens. When a woman comes to the hospital, which we advise that they should always first come to the hospital.
Okay.
We advise that because evidence is
pregnant or not,
after rape, we advise that they should first seek the hospital than to start going to the police or the gendarmes and so on. When they do all those movements first before coming to, there are many evidences that are lost. So when they come to the hospital, according to the legislation, according to medical procedure, when they come, we get evidence.
Okay.
We get evidence, palpable evidence, and we just note down the evidence. We note down the evidence in a medical report.
Okay.
You have come, you complained of this, and in our physical examination, what have we found? We have found that you have a lesion here, you have a bruise here, you have a problem here, you are bleeding at your private parts, you are bleeding somewhere, and so on. Those are the things that a medical person notes on the medical report.
Yeah.
And then just send that to the legal part of it. It's the legal part of it that will take that with what you see and do their investigations and know whether what you are saying and what we found put together gives an unconsented penetration. When they put that together, then they will conclude that this woman has had an unconsented penetration that has led to a pregnancy. If there is a pregnancy, if there is no pregnancy, this woman has been raped, and then they forward it now to any other level that it has to go. If the pregnancy results on that, then they attest that this woman has had an unconsented penetration that has resulted to this pregnancy, and she doesn't want the pregnancy, and a requisition is sent back to the medical personnel, who is only at that time that can carry out an abortion. So you see how cumbersome it is. Before all this process takes place, if there is no force pushing it behind, this thing can take 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, and the pregnancy is already
Barrister
at age of delivery.
So what I hear doctors saying is, we have a case of a woman who's been raped, comes to Dr. Eko's office. Dr. Eko says, according to the law, I've done my examination. This is the medical report. You hand it to the woman. She takes it to the police station or wherever,
to the
court.
Take it to the court.
She takes it to the court, and the court needs to determine that she has been raped before she will now carry back the court decision to Dr. Eko to terminate the pregnancy in case she didn't want a pregnancy that resulted from rape.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about this process? And by the way, is it easy, you know, to prove that a woman has been raped? Let's say Dr. Eko sent her with a medical report on Monday. She comes to Barrister Joy and say, I need help. You know, women may not know how to, some people may not know how to go to court by themselves. You help the woman. On which day does she return to Dr. Eko with the court finding? Is it Wednesday? Is it Thursday? How soon?
Nah, not as soon as we want to. Actually, because I have worked a lot on these rape cases, what he's saying is the truth. Like when he says that the procedure is cumbersome, it's long, I will not want to approve with the word bottlenecks. I would just want to say that when you are exercising or when you have the powers to carry out what the law says, there are procedures that we follow, and these procedures must be followed. You would not want to take your emotions and just put them in front. I have my reservations to that too, but now let me try to get to a practical case. If someone is raped and you come to court and you say, I was raped, it depends if you are complaining against an identified person or an unidentified person, because there are people who actually know who raped them and there are others who don't know. So even if you know who raped you, unfortunately, again, everyone is innocent before the law until proven guilty. So as a lawyer and as someone who advocates against rape, when someone comes to me, I say, the first thing is go to the hospital and do your medical checkup, what he said. I usually don't tell people that go to the police station and report first, because when you have this medical certificate and you have this proof that is authentic, you have to use it for a very long time, because the court procedure is not as simple as maybe the medical procedure. You might just come to the hospital and within a few hours, someone has already had your certificate and it's there for you to use. But if you come to court, it's not the same thing. First of all, we usually don't start in court. Most cases, you have to do a complaint at the level of the judicial police. And when you do a complaint at the level of the judicial police, the person is convocated, he comes there, investigations are opened. Mostly, the judicial police doesn't have powers to punish someone, to maybe give an imprisonment term or fine. No, he doesn't have that kind of power. So he has to forward the file to court. This is before the high courts. Now we have an official trial. That is where we have the whole issue now. Because in court, you're not just going to come the first day and they call your file and then they go into the details of it and then they give you a decision. No, it's not going to happen like that. It's not going to happen anywhere in Cameroon, unfortunately. And that is why we as activists, we have often advocated for laws that are specific to victims of rape. Like, if someone is raped, in Sierra Leone, that is just here, rape is a national emergency. From the medical right up to the court procedures are all borne by the state. But in Cameroon, it's not the same.
So when you go to court, how long could it take?
Okay. Now, it depends on the court. It depends on whoever is handling your case. It depends on the kind of forces that are behind that are pushing. Unfortunately, all of that is involved. A typical criminal in, let me take our High Court of Fundi in Yaoundé, it's not going to take less than a year. Unfortunately, I do most of those cases pro bono, paid. And if you go to maybe a smaller court in, let me say, Akonolinga, still in the central region, it might take about 6 months. Now, when you go to those courts that are out of maybe these big jurisdictions, they have less court files, they have lesser work to do. So in court, the judge might just go through the file and he identifies whoever is concerned and he gets into the details, and maybe it could take like 6 months, but it's not going to be less than 3 months. I'm talking in a case where the medical doctor is waiting for, no, it's not going to take less than 3 months. I don't think I have seen that before. Maybe it happened somewhere, but it's not going to. So if you come now to Fundi, on a typical criminal court day, we have at least 100 criminal files. And if you have 100 criminal files, it means that each and every of those files have to be looked into detailing. So your file is just coming. There are people who have been in prison for like 2 years, whose cases have never been heard. Yes. So I don't think that you're going to be prioritized.
So you have a rape victim who's pregnant, comes to the doctor says, the law, we need to comply, this is my medical record. You take your client, you are in court, and it could be 3, it could be 6 months, it could be 1 year.
In some cases,
so they're coming back to Dr. Eko after 1 year, after 9 months.
After 9 months. You might even meet the judge. Maybe you write a special application telling him that this is a matter of emergency, but most times he might even want to help, but the circumstances might not be within his, so it's going to be difficult.
Certainly there are gaps there, and on Spotlight today we are looking at the implications of unsafe abortions, deaths, and all these complications we're having, and we are appealing to policymakers to look into this so that we can save more lives of Cameroonian women. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue dissecting these issues.
Nous avons pensé. Pour mieux répondre à vos attentes, nous avons rehaussé le standing.
Hotel Le Quai d'Orsay, better than what you imagine.
Welcome back. On Spotlight today, we are having a legal perspective at eliminating the high abortion-related complications and deaths in Cameroon. Before the break, we had a scenario that is typical to the ones that the doctors see in our hospitals every day, where you have a victim of rape who is pregnant as a result of the rape, and in this hypothetical case, Dr. Eko says he would do the medical examination and send the person to the courts to bring a court judgment that will allow you to terminate this pregnancy resulting from rape. And Barrister, you're telling me that typically it could take 3 months, 6 months, sometimes 1 year before we have this court judgment that proves that the lady was raped. Within this time, Dr. Eko, what happens to you, at the hospital, to your patient, this waiting time?
Certainly, the impatience of the victim will certainly push her to backstreet unsafe abortion, because me who understands the procedure, I will not just go ahead and skip over the procedure and go ahead with provoking or inducing the abortion. I will wait for the procedure to take its course. So this woman who is very impatient, and of course I understand why she is impatient, because waiting for 6 months, certainly even after 6 months, if the judgment is given, I cannot induce an abortion of a 6 months pregnancy. It's impossible. So you see, those are the difficulties. She will certainly seek another help from somewhere else. And that is where we go to backstreets and
this
severe
help from
complications.
somewhere else could be them trying to do it themselves at home.
Of course, that's why you see the law says if you procure the abortion to yourself or somebody does it. Because the law sees all those that you can induce your own, or the same as you can do to somebody. So all those persons are seen and indexed in the law.
So while waiting, out of frustration, some of these victims decide to induce an abortion, and then the law catches up with them.
Yeah.
Or they go to backstreet
Or they go
corners
to back
where
to
they will
backstreet
not
corners.
ask them for a
For
court
all,
judgment.
for all that procedure.
And
all
do
that
you
procedure.
have cases where this has actually happened? Because when we said, imagine that this happens, but does it actually happen like this? Have you had cases within the Society of Gynaecologists? Are there doctors who have complained about some patients who decided to induce, an abortion or seek backstreet care just because of the long waiting time in court to get the judgment?
It does occur, and that is why we are advocating to see how to reduce the procedure, to shorten the time, the turnaround time. We call it the turnaround time,
Right.
from the incident to the judgment. And that's the time we call the turnaround time. It's so long. That is why we are advocating to see that most of this procedure be shortened, that the doctor who is a competent specialist should be able to say this is a rape case and go ahead with the procedure. Because, of course, we understand what the consequence will be if it has to go through that long procedure. That's the first thing that we're trying to do. Secondly, we're trying to see again how we can, with the judiciary, try to see how, as Barrister said, take these cases as emergency.
Yeah.
There are countries, she cited one. There are other countries. I don't want to cite countries, but there are other countries where immediately the woman comes to the hospital and says, I've been raped. You don't even ask question 2, you the physician. You don't ask question 2. You just go ahead and see she's pregnant. You go ahead with the procedure. You don't need any second opinion.
And in Cameroon, it's not just sending the woman to get a court judgment. At the hospital, there are also different procedures that take place.
Yes, there are other different procedures, but in the
Cameroon.
hospitals we are trying to receive, not to put these women on the queue. When a woman comes to the hospital and the complaint that is taken is that we try to receive her as fast as possible in such a way that she can discharge herself from the, because sincerely it's
traumatic.
It's very traumatic. And then when you are sitting with other women who have come for consultation and you realize that you are not in the same in the same problem like the other women, the trauma is even more.
And you need 2 medical personnel to sign or attest?
No. With rape, you don't need.
Okay,
You need one
consent,
competent medical personnel to attest that this is what I've found, and then it goes to the judiciary. The one that needs 2, 3 professionals in reproductive health to attest is the case that the woman's health is in danger. When the woman's health is in danger, it's not just one practitioner. I, the following physician, the consulting physician, I need to attest.
And 2
and
more.
need 2 other experts to attest. And it doesn't just end there. After you do that, you need to make a letter in copies and send addressed to the Minister of Public Health.
And this takes
time. And it takes another
time.
So
we have the scenarios where the law in Cameroon says that a woman who has been raped and is pregnant as a result of this rape can legally get an abortion in the hospital. But we're already seeing the procedure and how it limits these women from getting this abortions. And now, if a woman's health is in danger as a result of a pregnancy and she comes to the hospital, the examining physician has to attest. You have 2 more doctors who attest, and then you write a letter in several copies to the minister. And after that, what happens?
You write the letter in 3 copies, you keep one, you give one to the victim, and then you send forward one to the minister. Before now,
even if you are in Kambe or Furawa, you send to the minister.
You must send to the minister. It has to go to the minister.
Probably hard copy.
But certain things we've tried to
not an email.
Reduce some of those things. Not that you don't send, you have to send. But because of, again, the duration of time that before it used to take, we came to the conclusion in society that you must address to the minister. But insofar as that it has been confirmed by three practitioners, you can go ahead with the procedure. But the letter must go to the minister.
Do you expect a response from the minister before you help the woman?
No, now we don't. Before we used to expect, but when we see that expecting the woman will probably take the pregnancy to term before. So now we don't expect, we don't wait for the response, but you must send a letter to the minister.
To tell the minister there's this woman, her life is in danger.
This woman, this is what I found, this is a medical report, and she's pregnant, and this pregnancy endangers her life. And not just you alone, because you alone can write your own, and the second party comes and says, no, with this case, this pregnancy can go to.
And this takes time?
It takes time. Of course, it takes time. You can be an institution that you need to call for a person in another institution because maybe the other persons in your institution are not competent enough to talk about that case. You need to call somebody of a reproductive health specialist to come from another institution in your environment to help in that case.
And I'm looking at this not just in the context of the big cities. We have communities in Cameroon where maybe there's just one doctor in a whole village, and in that case, this doctor has to get others?
In principle, you don't need only a doctor to attest, but you need experts in reproductive health. So in such a way that they should put the cause effect of the pregnancy and the danger to the health. So they should put that together. So you don't just need any person who works on health.
You need some competent authority, even if it's not a doctor. And this is lacking in some villages where you have just one nurse in the whole health center.
This is lacking in many places, and that is why the problem persists. And the problem will continue to persist if we don't work, us, the providers of the service, and our partners, who are the judiciary and who are the legislationists. If all of us don't work hand in gloves to see that this process is shortened, but it will still, sincerely, it will still continue to push women to back streets and increase the prevalence of unsafe abortions and all the consequences that follows.
We have the Maputo Protocol. There's so much that's been talked about it. Does it not address these issues, Barrister? Especially Article 14, Section 2C of the Maputo Protocol.
It simply talks about the protection of sexual rights and the rights of women as far as abortion is concerned, but it doesn't talk about the procedures, and that is, I think, that is the essential thing that we need to talk about, because already our penal code already talks about protection of women who are supposed to have these abortions. So it's in line with what the penal code says. But now, talking about the procedure, Maputo Protocol is silent. And that is what we need to look at when we're talking about abortion in the country.
Doctor, does the Maputo Protocol not answer these questions? Does it not fill these gaps that we have in Cameroon? Because it's been ratified in Cameroon.
Thank you very much. I think that is one of the orientation that the ATTACK project is looking at. The Maputo Protocol expands the scope that abortion can be committed, which is a little bit more vast than what our penal code is talking about.
Okay.
As Barrister just read our penal code gave two circumstances, only two circumstances: rape and the woman's health in danger. Those are the two circumstances. Our penal code doesn't talk about incest. Our penal code doesn't talk about the fetus. Nowhere in the penal code the fetus is seen as a problem. So it simply means, if we are just following our penal code, any woman carrying on a pregnancy that the baby has no head, let me put it that way.
Malformation.
A severe malformation that we medical we say is incompatible with external life. It means immediately the baby is taken out, disconnected from the woman. That baby cannot live for more than 5 minutes. Our law does not permit that pregnancy be terminated.
Does it not also, in a way, endanger the health of the woman? Does it not cover the part where it talks about the woman's health being endangered?
It doesn't.
You may have severe malformation, but the mother's life
the mother
is not
has
in danger?
no problem. The woman can carry the pregnancy to term. It will not affect the woman's physical, anything. Okay? It's just like you're carrying a pregnancy. It's just that the pregnancy is malformed. It's a baby that does not have a heart, for example. It's a baby that does not have kidneys.
So our law does not make it...
Our law does not give any provision
for the termination of a pregnancy, even if there's severe malformation.
Even there's severe malformation. But meanwhile, that one is covered in the Maputo Protocol, which Cameroon has ratified. I want to make stress on that. Cameroon has signed and ratified. And again, it is so funny. When I go through our procedure, I go through our law, I go through all these things, I'm perplexed. Perplexed in one or two aspects. The first aspect, when you read even the Maputo Protocol, the Maputo Protocol is stressing that this protocol is to be implemented by the year 2015.
We're in 2021.
We are in 2021. Cameroon has not incorporated, even though our constitution is very clear that any superior law that is ratified goes into, but the barrister can say better.
I don't think that we have not incorporated, because when we have the penal code and then we have a law that is already superior to our laws, yes, it means that in the application of that law, that can also be taken into provision. So
why is this not happening if we have signed and ratified?
That is the question. So that is the question.
No, it is left for whoever is concerned. For instance, if you bring me a case of someone who has that kind of situation, maybe the fetus is not well developed and they went ahead to commit an abortion, and if you're being pursued in court or sued for that particular aspect, and I raise the Maputo Protocol, then you are covered, because it is also...
Barrister, that is true. But again, you see now that if you are pursued, then why should we wait? The penal code has been revised so many years, many times after the ratification of the Maputo Protocol. And that is where the problem is, because we discussed with others. That is the problem. Some persons are still seeing, should this be incorporated down? Should we still see it as something that, and that is where our problem is. We just want something that everybody can hold the same document, which is an internal document, and say, okay, all of us are saying
it's going to be difficult if you want one document that is an internal document for everybody to use and know, because it's a body, it's hand in gloves. You have other laws that are ratified by Cameroon, and so we will put all of them together.
So we have this context in Cameroon where there is a law that makes provision for women who have been raped or women whose lives are in danger to seek abortions in hospitals, but at the same time, the legal procedures makes it difficult for these women to get the service in good time. And now we have the Maputo Protocol that has been signed and has been ratified, but not much has changed in terms of operations and access to safe abortions for women who are eligible by Cameroonian law to get it. Why do we have this situation? Dr. Eko,
yes, as I was saying, this Maputo Protocol is something that we think can push us forward. Because, as I say, we've developed a document in the ministry that has taken into consideration some aspects of the Maputo.
Document?
The Society of Gynaecology and Obstetricians of Cameroon, in collaboration with the Ministry of Public Health. Okay. We developed that document. It's a national document on reproductive health and family planning. In that document, we gave the indications that is recognized, and that is where the problem is, that is recognized in Cameroon. And in that document, the only thing that we took from the Maputo Protocol is malformations incompatible with internal life, that with external life. That is only thing that we added to the other two that our penal code is saying. So you still see that there is still a gap between that document and the Maputo Protocol, even though it's an advancement with respect to our penal code.
Right.
But that document did not change anything with respect to procedure. The procedure now depends on our national laws.
So even if we've signed and we've
ratified, that is just the indication. It is indicated for this, but now, how do you carry it out? The procedure now varies from one country to the other. As I said, in some countries in Africa, you just need to go there and say you are raped. This pregnancy is, I have been raped, and they see that you're pregnant and I don't want the pregnancy, and the doctor at that same spot, he doesn't wait the next day or 2 days. He can go ahead and carry out the procedure. But in our country, the procedure isn't like that. So that is why you see we still have a lot of these problems, and we are pleading with those who are in charge of these things, the policymakers, who try to see how we can overturn some of these procedures to shorten and reduce the prevalence and frequency of backstreet abortions and the complications that unfold.
Yes, sir, Barrister?
Do you know how many people are going to say they are raped when they are not actually raped if we have to bring a law like that in Cameroon? I'm not in any way advocating for rapes or saying that people should be raped, but I'm saying that our procedures might be tough, they might be tight, but sometimes also you need to know who to meet, and you need to know what the law says and how to go about it for you to have maybe a shortcut to the law.
Shouldn't the law and the procedures be so clear that it doesn't depend on who you know?
No, it's not about, when I say who you know, I'm not talking about the fact that you have to know somebody at the top. I'm saying that he's a medical practitioner. When he talks about medicine and lots of things that concern the field, I'm just amazed, and I look at him and I can't really find my way around that. It's the same thing like when it's in the legal field. If you come to court, I don't think that you're going to know the same things I know. You're going to know the shortcuts that are going to give you.
That's why the doctors have to work with the
Yes.
lawyers and policymakers to save lives in Cameroon. And at this point, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have the say of some members of our audience on this very critical topic. And when we come back, we will take conclusions from Barrister Joy Chefu and Dr. Filbert Eko Eko.
National Coordinator of Civitas Cameroon, an expert in human rights and humanitarian action. I'm going to be talking on safe abortion in Cameroon. The law on safe abortion in Cameroon is very restrictive. Judicial or administrative requirements should be minimized or removed when it comes to safe abortion in Cameroon. There is need for clear protocols to be established for both police and health workers in order to facilitate prompt referral and access to appropriate care for women and girls. Restriction in access to safe abortion services results in both unsafe abortions and unwanted births. Almost all deaths and mobility from unsafe abortion occur in countries where abortion is severely restricted in laws and practice, like it is in Cameroon. Laws and policies on abortion should protect women's health and their human rights. Regulatory policies and barriers that hinder access to and timely provisions of safe abortion care should be removed. When a law is too full of encumbrances, it misses out on its purpose and its usefulness, just as the procedure for a woman to undergo safe abortion, in other words, for a woman to undergo therapeutic abortion. An enabling regulatory and policy environment is needed to ensure that every woman who is legally eligible has ready access to safe abortion care. Policies should be geared to respecting, protecting the rights of women to achieve positive health and outcome of women. The provisions of the Cameroon Penal Code on abortion really does not serve the purpose of safe abortion. But that notwithstanding, Cameroon has ratified the Maputo Protocol, although with reservations, and the Maputo Protocol 14 talks on safe abortion, and there is need for this to be applied in Cameroon.
Welcome back. As we wrap up this conversation, I will turn to Barrister Joy Chefu to ask you, what is your key message for the policymakers in Cameroon as far as this topic of procedures and the legal perspective to unsafe abortions in Cameroon is concerned?
There's something I've often said as far as rape is concerned. I'm talking of rape because it's in connection to abortion. That is, yeah. Yes. I think that we have to break down the procedures as far as rape is concerned in Cameroon. I quoted the case of Sierra Leone, and I keep insisting on that because there are lots of people who do not even find the courage to come to court when they are raped. But when they finally show up in court, it's another story, and most of them they back off because our procedures are long, they are costly, and for you to go through a procedure in court, you really need to have the stamina to do it. So I'm calling on our policymakers that I'm telling them to, let's look for ways to break it down. Maybe we treat rape cases as emergencies. Yes, we have a special section for rape cases. I know some of them who are watching will be like, is she crazy? But yes, I mean what I'm saying because I have been with some of those victims and I know exactly what they go through. So if we can cut their procedures, if we can make it faster for them, if we can give them special attention, then we're going to go a long way to save lives in Cameroon.
Rape should be treated as an emergency and the procedures shortened so we can save lives. Dr. Filbert Eko, what is your take-home message, especially to the policymakers? Throughout this conversation, you kept, directing responsibility to judiciary and the policymakers. What can they do? What should they do to save the lives of Cameroonian women?
Thank you for giving me the floor again to address a message to our partners. I'll call them our partners because for us to carry out the procedure, we must be legally backed. We should not just carry out a procedure because the woman needs that procedure. But us also, we need to be covered by our legislation in such a way that when you carry out the procedure, you shouldn't be indicted. You shouldn't have a specific legal problem just because you want to save a woman from a dilemma. I will address straight to them. We are to save lives. They should help us to save lives. Many women go to back streets. Many women induce themselves, induced abortions, what we call an abortion, interruption of the pregnancy before a certain age, whether death or life. But the certainty is many women don't come to the competent authorities because of these bottlenecks. The indication is clear. We will follow the indications that are given by our legislation. But they should help us in such a way that the procedure leading to this process should be shortened. If not, it will not solve a problem. We will not come to interrupt a pregnancy that is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months. It makes no sense because an interruption of a pregnancy in an abortion case is in such a way that the fetus should not be viable. You cannot interrupt the pregnancy when the fetus is already viable. It makes no sense. So you interrupt it when the fetus is not viable, and that is why we are pleading with them. They should look at the procedure and see how, as Barrister said, maybe there are some other cases that it is difficult for us to say it is rape, but there are cases. We know that even with the law, medically, a child does not give consent. It means if somebody is already a child, that no matter what, whether they come and say, is the child who accepted, insofar as there is pregnancy, it is considered rape. So we don't need a consent. The child does not give consent. So why can't we, even in those cases,
go into it. If we see other things that the trauma is very evident, why should we go into some of these procedures? But as Barrister said, even if they want these procedures, they can treat it as a matter of urgency. They should create, maybe, I don't know, I'm not in the law sector, but they should see how they should create maybe a network in such a way that when it comes to the hospital, I already know the lawyer that I'm touching, I already know the magistrate that is touching. Immediately, the network is created in every sector, in every region, that you know that immediately you have the case, those persons are touched, and the procedure will not take a longer time, it will take a short time, and then it's succeeded.
Thank you, Dr. Filbert Eko. Thank you, Barrister Joy Chefu. Our policymakers have heard you, and the call is clear. Let's look at the law. Let's look at the procedures governing practice in the hospitals to make sure that women's lives are being saved, especially during this month where we're having the Women's Month. We hope that this conversation will inspire our leaders to do the needful. Thanks again for watching, and it's goodbye from us on Spotlight.